Okay, here we are, everyone. This is the end of Swiss, the final round. Round 7 is underway of the Bushiroad Rumble Online 2022 Europe Side Weiss Schwarz Tournament. I'm joined once again by Leon. Leon, it's the end of the day. We've made it. One more round left to go. How is it? How are you feeling? Pretty intense. Yeah, that's a good point. It's the last round. Some people have everything to play for. Some people are guaranteed made it. Let's take a look at the standings and see what's going on. So here you go. We have Tanjiro going into the final round with an XO record. Seems very good for him. And then we have a lot of players on X1. Yeah, a lot of these, I'd say half of these people you can see on your screen right now are guaranteed to make top 8, and the other half need to have very good breakers. We've got Stella DNB, Mr. Yarbaka, Darcy of WCC, Mauricio DV, who we just saw on stream last round, Hakase, also from WCC, still on a 5 run, El Yisus from Chile, still on a 5-1, Dundee and Serio Tenan. Again, these guys they're not guaranteed, but they're pretty comfortable making it in. So let's take a look at 9th to 16 and see who's really fighting for the last spots, see who's going to maybe bubble in. The last X1, we have Softly for the win. So it's going to see how they work out. And then we have the X2s. You've got Avis, Bao, Asuna, Roy, Stockstock Games, Kuro, and Alex Denk. Man, a lot of really high caliber top names here in the list. And it's going to be a real battle to get into top 8.
That's true, yeah. I mean, if you're looking at the 5 and 1s, once they win, they're in, right? But the 4 and 2s, they really need to win, and they still have to get fingers crossed. Otherwise, they might not make
it. Big risk of bubbling, which is, you never want to be 9th place bubble.
Yeah.
So, moving into, let's move on to the next game. So, as much as we would love to show Tokyo Revengers here today, there's only one Tokyo Revengers left, and it is going to be Yarbaka, who's currently X1, but unfortunately, due to various reasons, we're not going to show up on stream. But I think the stream game we have lined up for you is just as exciting. We're going to have WCC's Darcy versus Thundy, also known as, I think his name's Felix, is that right?
No, I don't think it's Felix, no.
No, okay, Felix is someone else. I'm getting my Germans confused here. But Darcy versus Thundy, two very well-known names in the community. They're both active on Discord. They're both active on online tournaments. So I think when we say high caliber skill, this is definitely the matchup that when you say top tier players going against each other, this is definitely a matchup that goes into that book. And they're both playing very solid meta decks as well. We've got the tried and tested Kanata Marine deck for Hololive from Darcy versus, as we've seen, Mushoku's 8 standby from Thundy. So without further delay, let's jump straight into the deck lists. So here we are, Kanata Marine. This has been touted as the Hololive deck to play. You have such an insane mid-game, you just farm up and you have a massive defense with the 2-1 Kanata that changes into the 3-2 Kanata. You've got soul modulation out of nowhere. You've got incredible finishing power with the Marine, which you can build up to really easily with the Kanata. And the Kanata is easy to put together because you have so much filtering utility with the Aki Clock Salvage at level 0, you have the Miko Drop Search, and you have a very powerful level 1 game in the form of Miko and Roboco. This is just a super standard deck, very defensive. In my opinion, it needs to high roll a little bit. You need to hit your brainstorms. You need to be able to hit stocks or climaxes every single turn. But once it gets going, it's very, very hard to take apart. Even if you break the Kanata board against things like Danmachi or Mushoku, they can still use Kanata to salvage more for the next turn and just rebuild at virtually 0 cost compared to the Rushia.
Yeah, this deck is really insane. Especially because when you look at normal decks, you have one Climax combo at level 1 and then one Climax combo at level 3. But with the Kanata Marine build, it just plays so differently because you have a combo at level 2 that just basically serves for you staying at level 2 longer. And then once you reach level 3, you're just gonna try and attempt to finish with the Marine.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's a very solid and consistent deck piloted by one of the better players in the West. So let's take a jump over and look at Thundy's deck, which is Mushoku Tensei. And we had Mushoku Tensei earlier on stream, but I think that was a very greedy list, arguably, whereas this one I think is a lot more straightforward. You see the Paul again, you see less copies of the TD Burn 2 Roxy, and you see a much more utility-focused level 0 game.
Yeah, this displays the event as well. I'd say let's jump into the game because it already started, and then I'm gonna tell you about the event while we're in.
Sounds good.
Right. Oh my god, okay.
They're quite far ahead already.
They're quite far ahead already. So basically, we see an established board here. The Thundy just started his level 1 turn in the attack phase. We see he got 1/1 errors off, another 2/2 errors in the back row for his standby effect, and he also is playing the event that I wanted to tell you about. So while he does not have the event in memory at the moment, the pendant event is very important for many Mushoku lists, because what it does is, if you play it, you search a card from your deck and then you discard a card, which means you can set up your waiting room. But more importantly, on top of that, it goes to memory when you resolve it, and once you level up, you can then send it from memory to waiting room to search another card from deck, this time without discarding it. This just made Mushoku have such a high ceiling that it gets really hard to stop it when it actually gets going.
Yeah, exactly. Like, one of the weaknesses of standby decks has always been maintaining compression or maintaining advantage, and I say this pendant here, Amulet of Midgard Race, definitely fixes that issue.
Yeah, definitely.
So we see here Darcy's just flown up to level 1 on turn 2, which is exactly what you want in Hololive. You're trying to get to level 2 as fast as possible so that you can start tanking up and compressing and building an advantage with the Kanata engine. And we'll see how that works out for him. And the one thing about Hololive, which I really want to point out, regardless if you're playing the Kanata build or the Coronet build or whatever, is that Hololive has a surprising amount of tools to deconstruct level 1 boards. So we see there, we can quickly update the names, but Thundy has his 1/1 Roxy in the middle, but it's very easy for Darcy to just pop those and get rid of those.
Yeah, definitely. I'm unsure what card Darcy just played, because there's a shine there, but I think it might.
It looks like the 1/0 Miko.
Yeah, I think so too. And that card is just a really solid card overall. It gets to 6k power if you have a legal deck and 2 characters on board. And also, it has a hand encore. So,
and clock encore, actually.
Clock encore. Oh, sorry,
Yes.
I misread, yeah.
Yeah, which means that it helps you accelerate from level 1 to level 2 so that you can start getting to your Kanata combo faster.
Yeah, this is actually insane for this deck.
Of course, Thundy taking a lot of, getting some cancels here, which is exactly what he wants as well. The weakness of the standby deck is that if you don't spend some time building up the compression by quote-unquote sustaining your board with standby, you can fall behind in damage. But he only took 2 damage that entire turn, and he now has all the flexibility in the world to just, build his stock, build his hand, and just start punishing Darcy for being behind on damage.
Yeah, this is exactly what you want as Mushoku Tensei here. We can see him resolving the Eris Chiori, which means when she goes to waiting room, is going to ditch a card, then reveal up to 4, and then add a card that is level 1 or higher. We see him adding the Roxy back row here, just to clock it, and then once he reaches level 2, he can put that into waiting room to have a standby target. Pretty standard and straightforward play here.
Yeah, pushing out this level 2 here this early is very good for him. He hits a brainstorm as well, which is nice. And he's only at 1/4, so again, very low damage, and he's already so close. Like, I think he might actually refresh either at the end of this turn or start of his next turn. So, as we mentioned before earlier in the stream, like, having a refresh at level 1 is exactly what you want, so that you can start setting up your level 2 and level 3 engine and building that compression.
Yeah, and this board state is actually perfect for him if he has a climax combo for the Eris in hand, because he can mill 2 with the climax. Then is left at 4 cards left in deck, attacks 3 times, and then gets the climax that he played into his waiting room.
And he can still stand by out a 2/2 while he's at it as well. This is really good. So we'll see if he does have.
Yeah, okay.
He's got the climax swapper. Yep.
Worth noting that the climax swapper also boosts the character by 1.5k, so there's no way that the Miko is gonna get backed up, but he isn't playing any level 1 backups anyway, as is normal for Kanata Marine build, so that's
this is one card I really like in Mushoku builds that we didn't see from Hakasei's list, but it's the 1/0 Accelerate Gizlane, which is basically if he wants, he can choose to clock himself to get an on-reverse look at top 4. Of course, he doesn't need to do that because it would take a card out of his deck and he wouldn't get to refresh his climax back in, and he's already going down to 1 card deck at the end of turn. But it just, again, it fixes the quote-unquote selection issue that standby decks normally have, because you can standby this out at level 0 if you don't have the 1/1 Eris, and then it can then every turn clock 1 to basically salvage 1, which is really strong for selection. given that standby decks are naturally going to go through their wit deck into their waiting room for standby to begin with.
Yeah. It's also a great card just in matchups where you expect your 1/1 Atlas to be reversed, since it's a card that you don't need to pay stock for that can actually still contest boards.
Darcy getting some really good cancels there, but I don't know if it matters here because Bundy just has so much compression set up for himself now, and he's got this huge board that Darcy's gonna have to work really hard to get past.
Yeah, I'm actually not sure if Darcy really wanted to stay at level 1 here.
Like he can clock encore the Miko to push him up to 1/5, and then he can and then he can clock draw for turn to go to 1/6, and then maybe brainstorm refresh to go to 2.0. And obviously refreshing into the brainstorm is exactly what he wants to see, but I don't know if that's going to be good enough here.
Well, we see him just using his level 0 there to clock himself.
Yep.
Yeah. So he can just clock to reach level 2 now. He has 3 stock.
Yeah, the only downside is that by refreshing here, he's lost a lot of clock compression, and it does give him a big waiting room to choose from for selection from the Kanata combo if he has it. But then if he goes for the Kanata combo, unless he brainstorms right now, he's not going to be refreshing those climaxes back in. And if he chooses to refresh first, he has less selection from the Kanata as a downside. So it's kind of like a worst of both worlds situation. Like he's not going to be able to play the optimal turn here.
Yeah, that's true. But I think it's still a really good turn for him. Like overall, if you look at the past turn for Thundi, you get 2 early plays here. You get the climax combo off. Probably has the other one in hand, maybe. So that's also just really good for him. You can just keep it and loop it next turn, right? He still refreshes with 6 climaxes.
Yep, it's still not bad, and he's got a lot of compression from the Kansas combo. So we see that both pieces on the screen. The level 2/1 changes into the 3/2 on climax play, and the 3/2 at the start of bad attack phase. If you have the climax, you can either get 2 stock or 2 hand, and get push a huge advantage out of that. And one of the really cool things about this engine, like I keep saying, is the quote-unquote surprise soul modulation, because the climax is a 1k stock soul, so it gives a soul to all your board, but it triggers at the same time as the change. So what you can do is you can either choose to change first and then use the stock soul, in which case the 3/2s will gain the soul, or you can use the stock soul first to give soul to the 2/1s, which then change into the 3/2s, so you can control exactly how much damage you're doing, which I think is a really cool aspect of this deck.
Yeah, this is actually insane. Just the fact that this is possible is just modern vice, right? We talked about it earlier.
Yeah, and in this case, I think Darcy is just trying to push Thundi as hard as he can. Thundi already has the better compression lineup, but I think Darcy chose to change and then stock soul to give the 3/2s the +1 soul. So I think this is swinging for 3, it looks like. Cancels on 2. But the important thing here is that Darcy did manage to salvage a lot of cards. He's gotten quite a decent setup put together, and Thundy's going to have to work. Nice cancel there for Thundi, but yeah, staying on 1 is exactly what Thundi wants, because now Thundi still has to work quite hard to get rid of Darcy's 3/2s, and not being able to play a 2/1 anti-change is going to really help, hinder him from doing that.
Yeah. However, in Mushoku Tensei, of course, there is always the possibility of just playing a Ruiger to actually let you reach level 2. I'm trying to get it up on screen right now. It's this one. Basically, this card, without even spending stock and just expediting 1 card in hand, allows you to just clock yourself up if you so desire. Normally you play 4 of this. This Mushoku Tensei deck is playing 3, which is also fine though. It's very valid. But if he has it, this can help him reach level 2, or he just takes 2, and then you just do it.
Yeah, levels up naturally anyway. So
yeah,
it's still pretty good for him. The important thing here is that beyond level 2 as a standby deck, you now have the ability to stamp out some level 3s, which can be very powerful. And this is the one weakness of Mushoku, is that if you push your opponent too hard, they just play these big things like early plays or Kanata in this case, and just overrun your standby targets. So you're running maybe not out of steam, but instead of spending time this turn getting closer to his 3/2 Gizlane burn, or setting up his end game, Thundi might have to spend some effort this turn rebuilding a board and fighting back the Kanata, which I don't think he wants to do.
Yeah, if you're in a situation like this in Thundi's shoes, or in any Mushoku Tensei player's shoes, you have to look at the cards you're dealt, right? If if the card you're dealt means your opponent just reached level 2, played 2 Kanadas, and there's no way you're gonna get over them, then you shouldn't. But if you have a way to get over them, you can try and assess the situation and then try it, just as Thundi is doing here.
Yeah, so you see the Eris early play coming down. It gains 1/5 power, which, all of his board is pretty big to contest the Canatas, but at the same time, we see double of the Kiryu Koko Brainstorm in the back row for Darcy there, so those Canatas are still 12k, which is well within counter range here.
Yeah, and also, I'm not sure what he salvaged with the Kanatas, but he might have just salvaged another Kanata backup, and could just play the backup.
Yeah, that's what's really insane about the engine as well. The Kanata 2-1 that changes into the 3-2 is itself a 2-1 counter, meaning that if you don't have you can either use the counter to, as a counter and keep your counters alive, or if they bot deck somehow with, like, say, Watame or an anti-change, you can still just rechange just as easily. So salvaging the 2-1 is just a really solid play no matter what. So Thundi has to either play around this 3k counter, or even if he removes them, he gets past 14 or 15, he still has to deal with Kanata coming back the next turn anyway.
Yeah, that's why I'm not sure if it's actually correct trying to contest Kanata here. But he does have a standby, so okay, that changes. Oh my god, I can't talk. It's been a long day. The situation changed suddenly, because with the Roxy, of course, all of his front row characters in front of the Roxy are gonna be 2k stronger. He also has the Ghislaine, so 1k as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of power pump to his board there, so he can easily contest. And I think here Darcy's seeing that he doesn't get there even with the counter. So Darcy's effort is probably better spent just keeping his characters alive through other means.
Yep.
Yeah, the Roxy there from the standby target, giving his characters a plus 2k to the board. Meanwhile, the Ghislaine on the far right also pumping some more power to the board as well.
Yeah, so I think, if I'm not mistaken, we just saw Darcy use the Hato counter and just use it as a normal backup.
I like that play a lot because he needs to save the 2-1 Kanata counter to obviously change with again. And the strength about the counter is that you are getting a lot of hands, so discarding 4 is feasible, but in this case, he's not trying to save himself too much damage. He did end up taking everything, and he's flown up to level 3, so there is an argument that, healing down from, like, 2-6 is much better than healing down to 3-0 from 3-1, but at the same time, looking back at Darcy's list, he doesn't actually have that many healers. Like, the only healer he has is the 3-2 Kanata itself.
Yeah, that's actually kind of scary for him, but then at the same time, Thundi also only has 4 healers. It's just that Darcy is just one entire level ahead in damage.
Yeah, and the problem with being only 2-1 for Thundi is that as strong as a finisher as Marion might be, it's not strong enough to just end games from 2-1. And Darcy can spend another turn here, as we see, setting up Kanatas and farming some compression, farming some stock, farming some hand. But he's still at 3-0, and 3-0 or 3-1 is definitely lethal range for 3-2 Ghislaine burners if Thundi manages to get there.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder what's gonna happen here next, because the Kanatas might just run into a backup from Thundi himself.
Darcy hits one on the Brainstorm, draws 1. And this is kind of the other issue here, is that at least with the Rushia package, you have the 2-1 flare that can pump your Kanatas even more. Sorry, pump your Rushias even more. But in this engine, you don't have room for the, I think it's a 2-1 Toa that pumps specifically the Kanata. So you only have the Koko to give it power. You have no real other way of, like, getting it past 12 or 13. And no matter how much plussing you get, you're having to constantly spend resources, as we see Darcy doing here, to, rebuild a board or, like, get his good selection going. So even if he manages to, like, set up for Mari next turn, unless a lot of damage sticks this turn for Darcy, I don't think the Marion's going to do much either.
Yeah, he does play something that could help him, which is the other Kanata. Let's see if I can put that up on screen.
Yep, it's the Bomb Disposal Squad. So it can bond to either the Kiryu or the 3-2 Kanata, and it can also help fix his hand. So we see he just discarded 2 door climaxes. He discarded 1 for the bond, and he's discarding another one to retrieve the Marion. So that shows us that his hand was very clogged, which is unfortunate. But he is going to be able to remake triple Kanata on this turn which is going to get him probably 6 stock. He has more than enough hand for the Marine, and the Marine can find themselves the climax anyway. So he's going to be able to set up, and the 6 stock from the waiting room is going to give him all the compression he needs going into his refresh. He's only got 5 cards in deck, so this is some pretty good. This is a pretty good turn for him. It's just a case of, is this 6 stock compression going to be good enough going into your refresh?
Yeah, this is not bad at all. And especially when you consider the fact that, of course, the Marine doesn't really need a lot of stock to begin with. You can do triple Marine with as low as, I think, 4 or 5 stock?
I think it's 4 that you need, yeah, which he's never going to have, 1 from the stock soul and then 3 attacks. So if he really wants, he can just salvage 6 here as well. We see that he's salvaging the rest counter, which is going to be live with all those cards in his hand. But I think it's going to be 2 to hand and 4 to stock, which I do like a lot. The only downside is that, he won't have enough hand to do both rest counter and Marine if he chooses to do that line of play. But we'll see how he navigates the rest of this turn. It's going to be really good. He's only got 5 cards in deck, so that climax in play is going to go back in on the refresh as well. And the important thing to note is that even though Darcy's been putting effort and resources into rebuilding his board this turn, he's still been able to advance his game plan of finding Marines, compressing his deck a little bit, and getting into a position where next turn he can just make triple Marine and try and burn Thundy out of the game. Whereas conversely, Thundy has only had 1 Brainstorm, not much drop searches, he doesn't have the 1/1 Eris on board to filter anymore, and so he doesn't have the Amulet in play either. So Thundy's not been advancing his game plan very much outside of just, blind draws and random Brainstorm salvages.
So it seems Darcy sided into the 2-2 and the 3-2. Of course, in the end, Thundy just cancelled anyway, but I wonder if that's actually correct. Surely he wants to play the rest counter, but maybe you would just want to push for more damage and hope stick something so the Marine can actually attempt to finish.
The concern here is that because he resolved the change before the stock soul, those counters are 3 soul swings each, and I think you have to assume that at least 1 or 2 of those attacks is going to cancel. And what it also means is that Thundy will, if Thundy takes 1 damage, he goes like 3-1, 3-2. The Gizlane heals, so all that extra damage is not really doing anything major. All it does is push Thundy to level 3, where if he has the pieces, he can just Gizlane Darcy into potential game here. And I think Darcy just doesn't want to take that risk. He wants to force Thundy to have to overreach to play the Gizlanes for game, or maybe this buys Darcy that 1 turn that he needs, because 2-5 is actually Marine lethal range.
That's true. I mean,
so if Thundy doesn't put himself to level 3 here and doesn't go for the Gizlane burn, I don't know if he has a way of killing Darcy. And I think that's kind of what he's playing towards. Like we said, that the fact that Kanata is a very defensive style of deck and can sort of spend a bit more time just waiting for its pieces.
Yep. Yeah, I just wanted to mention that. You're actually absolutely correct. If Thundy doesn't realize that he might just need to go to level 3, this could actually spell doom for him.
Yeah, so he's chosen not to clock. The alternative option is that he is on 2-5. He does have quite a good bit of clock compression, and he's going to check 3 clean this turn and go to 7 stock. So his compression is not bad either. So maybe he's just saying, okay, I understand what the situation is like. I'm just going to bank on, surviving the Marine turn, which is definitely doable for him. You see the Rudeus come down? This is the offering a hand Rudeus.
Boosting the Eris.
Yep, so he can get over the Kanata, and then he plays his last standby from hand. He is going to take the mill 2 off of the Eris level 1 there, which I think is a little bit greedy, because it means that standby will now not refresh into his deck.
Yeah, he actually does not have a choice. You have to mill there. So that's... You could argue maybe he shouldn't have just not... He should have just not played the Eris. But if you played, you have to mill.
Yeah, so maybe he's just looking for the selection. I mean, we did see that he standbys out the 3-2 Gizlane, which he needs to end this game. I didn't see what he salvaged with the Eris combo, but he's basically banking on his compression this turn being good enough that it doesn't matter, which I think is an okay risk to take. But triggering a standby here it's actually not bad, because I think he did give double trigger to something.
Yeah, if you trigger a standby with the 3-2 Roxy on board, you can give Twin Drive to any character.
Yeah, so you can at least pay it out. So it's not the end of the world. It is just a case of, triggering standby on the first attack here is very bad, because he doesn't want to replace the 3-2 Roxy, and he doesn't want to replace his 3-2 Gizlane, and anything else would be wasting an attack. But no, he is actually going to replace the 1/1 with a Paul, and we keep saying that Paul is a very, very interesting card that we're both big fans of, and giving up this attack could actually be good here. Like, is there an argument of just passing the turn and like just not attacking with the 2/2? That way the standby refreshes in. Do you think?
I don't think so, because if you go that route, you can just give the Ares the Twin Drive and then use the Twin Drive and get the other Climax back. And the other Climax is actually your level 3 Climax combo.
Right, so that's
I
the one
think-
you actually do want to refresh
Yeah,
in. No, I think
exactly.
you're definitely right. But yeah, we see the pull there, very effective. The important thing is that if Darcy shoots a Marion into that pull, he risks taking 2 damage himself. And yeah, Darcy just takes a bunch of damage off of the refresh. The swing for 3 connects. The Twin Drive here might be what he needs to end the game, but no.
Oh my god.
Oh, the Soul Icon, that's lethal damage.
So that's why he played the Ares.
Yeah, so the standby there will whiff because of no waiting room, but again, Darcy, this rest counter doesn't do anything because this is the last attack. Darcy needs to cancel here or it's just all over. This is a huge turnabout.
Yeah. This really shows you why he played the Ares. He knew he was 4 cards in deck, 2 of them climaxes, so he just wanted to get rid of the 1 climax, at least 1. But he was pretty unfortunate and just didn't mill any climax. Gets another one as shuffled. Oh my god.
Yeah, refreshing another climax. So if this doesn't stick, he might lose, but it cancels. Oh, Darcy, what a play. Of course, he keeps one of the boards alive with the counter, but it's not looking good.
He also uses the Encore, which probably tells us that he has a rest counter in hand.
Yep.
It's still really risky though. 2 attacks against Marine is more than enough.
Yeah, you're on like 2/6 with losing 3 climaxes. Like even though Thundy's compression is really good, I think there's still a chance that he just gets triple married and just dies from here. I think that's a very real possibility.
It's 4 climaxes even. Remember, he didn't pay out the level 3 climax.
Right, yeah, so it's stuck in stock as well. That's even worse. Like,
and that's something I don't understand. If you know it's there, why didn't you just pay it out? If you know that the other one is also still in deck. Because that actually also makes your line of just passing the turn very solid. If you mill with the Ares, and then you have 2 climaxes left in deck, 2 cards in deck even, I think just not attacking at all might have also been valid.
Well, I mean, again, the point is, as we saw, the last attack was a climax as well, so at best he pays 1 out and puts another 1 in, but that's still better than just putting 2 in, right? So yeah, I definitely agree. Like, not using the Twin Drive there was very strange. He's going to salvage there. Yeah. If I'm in Darcy's shoes, I think there's no reason not to chase combo, right? Like, he just discarded a door combo for the Kanata salvage. Like,
maybe he has an extra door? He's playing the other Kanata, actually.
Yep, so this is the Towards the Future Kanata, which is the booster one, level 3.
Yep, I have it on screen right now.
Yeah, so it pretty much prevents backup, which is not too bad, and it gives him a soul. So he has a little bit more damage output here with the Marion, which is nice, but again, I don't know if it's going to do that much. So we see double Marion come down. I don't think he has the 3rd one. But yeah, the gate coming down here would just be too much damage for Thundy to cancel. And Darcy's positioned his board in such a way that the Paul won't be able to revenge burn the Marions. So the first one coming in, pay 1, ditch 1, burn 2. It cancels, very nice.
We see Thundy not even using a counter here, so maybe he doesn't have the counter.
And then 3 damage does stick, so Thundy does level up. But he's still only on 3/2, which is... It's not the most dangerous position to be in, but I wouldn't say it's great either.
I mean, this could definitely end his game right here.
So yeah, we'll see whether Thundy does actually have the counter. That's going to be really relevant here.
I think if he had the counter, he would have used it during the first attack, right? There's no way he wouldn't.
The burn 2 sticks, and this is a swing for 3, so Thundy needs to cancel here.
2. Ooh.
He doesn't cancel, so
Darcy
his compression was good, but yeah, getting those 4 climaxes stuck out of his deck was just nail in the coffin. Thundy was in such a commanding position, and then he was just unable to get those last climaxes out of his deck, and it just all went downhill from there.
Yeah, really unfortunate for him actually, but still really well played by Darcy as well.
Yeah, he identified the threat and he knew that no matter what Thundy does, if Thundy would need to, like we said, being on 2-5, he knew that he was at no risk of losing to Thundy. So he was able to just spend that one extra turn on Kanata, farming up his resources, and then eventually, being patient enough to push for game, banking that he would eventually cancel, which he did. And despite drawing a bunch of climaxes, he was able to sculpt his way into a winning position, which again just goes to show you that these two really good players understand their deck very well and were able to just navigate their way through that turn in a way that here's how I lose, here's how I win, here's how I dodge the losing condition, and here's how I get myself on the track to winning. And even from Thundy's side, there was a moment there where Thundy could have just won the game out of nowhere with a 3-soul swing, and Darcy got a very lucky cancel, but it could have been, it was just the flip of a coin at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, in the end, both of these players just played really well. And I'm not sure about you, but one thing about casting these really good players is they play so fast. It's so hard to follow. But yeah, really, congratulations to Darcy. Maybe Thundy makes it to top 8 anyway. I think there's 3 to 4 people making it into top 8, depending on if our X and Zero player won or lost.
Yep.
And yeah.
Yeah, it's still, it's fingers crossed. It's not the end of everything yet. There is still the chance, but that is going to be it for the end of round 7. So we are done with the Swiss rounds. So we're just going to cut to a quick break, and then afterwards, myself, Leon, and Nando will be back to bring you the standings, as well as the final bracket, as well as, say goodbye for today until we see you tomorrow. So we're just going to go for a quick break while we set up the last bits and pieces. So join us in just a few minutes for the top 8 announcement. See you all very soon.